The 48th Super Bowl proved once again fantasy is always greater than the reality. The hype and anticipation of the Super Bowl and of Super Bowl week leading up to this event proved the sexual metaphor that the fantasy is always greater than the reality. In watching it, we saw this immediately from the first play from scrimmage. The ball going over the head of Peyton Manning, and the look on his face, sitting on the bench. The game was over. The game was over when it began. The game was over immediately. So all this anticipation for this secular event, for this secular religion, is kind of disappointing. The Kabbalistic thing about football is that there are 11 people on each side. So there are 22 people playing at all times. This is reminiscent of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. The 11 lined up in the offensive position shows best the tree of life symbolism. You have to have 7 men on the line of scrimmage and 4 men in the backfield. The quarterback seems to be Das, because in the old days they used to have the T formation, the quarterback under the center, and then 3 backfield men, like the 3 higher Sephiros of Keter, Chochmah, and Bina. So let me make the alignment for you. It's the Yesod that's the center. He has the seed, the football, sperm, the ball, which he gives. Well, then to the center, there's 2 guards, which are Netzach and Hod, and then 2 tackles further away from those guards going back. That's Hesed and Gevora. And then the 2 ends, making the 7 linemen for the 7 lower Sephirot, the Zir Anpin and Malchus. The 2 ends are are Teferet and Malchus. They are also able to handle the ball, which gets put back in the center line to the quarterback, who is Das. There are 2 levels of Das. There's a lower Das at Yesod, and what they call Das Ilya, the higher Das, which is Das itself. The center pillar has Teferet and Malchus. They get split out here, and they can receive the ball by passes or ends around. And then above the quarterback are the three Sephirot of Keter, Chokmah, and Bina, which can be split, but in the backfield they don't have to be right behind the quarterback, but they have to be behind the linemen. So there are 7 people in the linemen, 1 quarterback, it's Das, and then 3 backfield men. And that makes the 11 tree of life. That quarterback can hand off the ball, the seed, or pass the ball. And so this is an entire sexual phenomenon. The defense has certain patterns too, but we won't go into that. It's just that the tree of life is depicted as 11 spots. It's depicted with Das, and that's why it has such an appeal to people. The other thing that I was noticing about the Super Bowl 48 was Bruno Mars. The genetic. His hair looked genetic. Generic. Bruno Mars. Bruno Mars as a generic version of Michael Jackson or James Brown or a generic version of whoever else he is like. He was actually picked because he's a generic version. They didn't want any edginess, any problems. They wanted a pablum. And they got it. Concept of the Super Bowl itself as a secular religion. Did you see the stadium? Did you see the build-up? Did you see the anticipation? There was even an ad for Scientology during the Super Bowl. Because Scientology, which has its parallel in the past 48 years, like the Super Bowl, understands the needs of the American people for a made-up religion. Football is an American religion. Field of battle, like the temple. The Sunday participation, like the church. The rallying point and focal point of a community. One roots for teams. In Seattle's case, it's being the 12th man. This is the necessity of people to have a religion, even where there isn't one. In my own case, I remember the first Super Bowl. I don't remember the third or fourth, but I remember the first. My father sponsored a tennis tournament in New York City at that time. I had one of my first big wins, and then I had lost the day before, and it comes to Sunday, and they had the final, and nobody showed up at the final, and we didn't know why. And then we found out we were scheduled against the first Super Bowl 48 years later, and I'm making comments about the Super Bowl. Where has this time gone? Is the Super Bowl hype worth it? What does it really do for people? I was disappointed with the halftime show. I was disappointed with the show itself. I was disappointed with the ads on television. It was a disappointment right from the start. And with that, this is my commentary. There's a great lure for the Super Bowl because of Kabbalistic reasons. Participating in the tree of life, in the flow of the tree of life with the seed of the football itself, participating in a bowl game. And all I can say is, let's hope that next year's Super Bowl will be a better one. Will live up to its anticipation and prove me wrong. And that sometimes the reality is greater than the fantasy. For that, we'll have to wait and see.